We laughed at him for 30 years. 30 years of watching this man stumble through life, struggle with things every single person around him found effortless, and we just laughed. But here is what nobody ever asked. What if we had it completely backwards? What if Mr. Bean was never the joke, and we just spent 3 decades too busy laughing to notice? Because I went back and watched every episode with one specific question in mind. I lined up his behavior, not against comedy writing, not against character tropes, against the actual clinical criteria that psychologists use to identify autism spectrum disorder, the DSM-5, the real diagnostic manual that real clinicians use in real consultations. And Mr. Bean hits 9 of the criteria, not 8, not 7 with a stretch, 9, clean, every single one. And by the time we get to number 9, I promise you this, you will never watch a single Mr. Bean clip the same way again. Let's go. Behavior 1. He cannot do small talk at all. Think about the last time you met a stranger. You probably said hello, maybe cracked a small joke, asked where they were from. You did all of that without a single conscious thought. Mr. Bean cannot do that. Not once across the entire show does he make conversation to connect with someone. Every word he says is functional. It is always about getting something done. The second that purpose disappears and the words disappear with them. Watch him in a waiting room, a queue, a restaurant. Normal people fill those silences automatically. Bean just sits there, not rudely, not on purpose. He genuinely does not register that silence is something other people find uncomfortable. Psychologists call this a deficit in social-emotional reciprocity, the natural back and forth of human conversation, the thing you do without thinking. Bean cannot access it. That is not a comedy choice. That is behavior number 1. And the next one is where it starts to get uncomfortable. Behavior 2. He has nobody. Name one friend Mr. Bean has. 1. Take your time. You cannot, because there are none. He has Irma, his girlfriend. But watch that relationship closely. She wants warmth. She wants connection. She wants him to notice her. And Bean is never cruel about it. He is never cold on purpose. He just cannot see what she needs. Cannot process the invisible emotional requirements that relationships run on. This is called difficulty developing and maintaining relationships. It does not mean the person feels nothing. It means they cannot read the unspoken rulebook that every human relationship depends on. Bean is not choosing to be alone. He is isolated because human connection requires social instincts he simply was not built with. That is not a character quirk. That is one of the loneliest things you will ever see on a television screen once you actually look at it. Behavior 3. Break his routine and watch what happens. Mr. Bean has rituals. The same car, the same flat, the same methodical step-by-step approach to every single problem. Even when that approach makes everything 10 times harder and takes 3 times as long. And when something disrupts the plan, he does not just adapt. Something in him short-circuits. He cannot move on until the order is restored. The disruption has to be fixed. The sequence has to be corrected. There is no flexibility available. Psychologists call this insistence on sameness. It is not stubbornness. It is a coping mechanism. The routine is the structure that makes the world manageable. When it holds, Bean functions. When it breaks, everything comes apart. That is behavior 3. And 4 is the one that will make you rethink every scene you have ever seen. Behavior 4. When he locks in, the world disappears. Here is something you have noticed about Bean your entire life without ever having a name for it. When he decides to solve a problem, nothing else exists. It does not matter how small the problem is. It does not matter how long it takes. It does not matter what is happening around him. The problem is everything. He will spend an entire afternoon engineering a solution to something a normal person would handle in 30 seconds, with total, locked-in concentration. That is called hyperfocus, one of the most consistent traits in autistic individuals. The ability to lock onto a single thing with an intensity that completely shuts out the rest of the world. The world could genuinely be on fire. Bean is still solving the problem. Behavior 5. He hears the words. Yeah, he misses everything else. This is the one that explains the most about him. Pay close attention here. Mr. Bean takes everything literally, completely literally. A sign says, "Stay off the grass." Bean treats every single blade as sacred ground. An instruction is given. He follows it to the exact letter, completely missing the implied meaning underneath it. A social norm exists. He applies it with a logic so precise that it collapses into chaos. And here is what we always missed. He is not being difficult. He understood exactly what was said. He just cannot access the unspoken layer that lives underneath every human communication. The tone, the context, the implied meaning, the gap between what is said and what is meant. Most human communication is about 60% unspoken. We fill those gaps automatically. We do not even notice we are doing it. Bean hears the words. The rest of the message never arrives. Behavior 6. He causes chaos and walks away clean. Watch what happens after Bean destroys someone's day. The person is humiliated, furious, genuinely hurt, and Bean walks away. Not smugly, not carelessly. He walks away because he did not see it. Psychologists call this a deficit in theory of mind. The ability to understand that other people have their own inner experiences that are completely separate separate from yours. Bean is not selfish. He is not choosing to ignore the damage. He literally cannot connect his actions to the distress on the face in front of him. He cannot model what someone else is feeling. The person behind him is devastated. Bean has already moved on to the next thing, not because he does not care, because he cannot see it. Behavior 7. Certain textures are not just unpleasant, they are everything. The food scenes. You know exactly which ones. Bean is presented with a texture he did not expect, and his reaction is not just, "I don't like this." His whole body responds. His face collapses. He becomes entirely consumed by that one sensory experience in a way that is completely disproportionate to what is actually happening. For most of us, it is just a meal. For someone with sensory processing differences, that texture, that specific, unexpected, wrong texture, is genuinely overwhelming. The nervous system cannot filter it the way yours does. Bean is not being dramatic. His nervous system is flooded, and he has no way to turn the signal down. Behavior 8. One version of him shows up everywhere. You have different versions of yourself. Everyone does. There is the version of you at a job interview, at a party, in a library, at a hospital. You switch between them automatically. You adjust your volume, your energy, your whole manner, without thinking once about doing it. Bean cannot do this. He behaves identically in a church and on a beach. He brings the same approach to a hospital that he brings to a fun fair. There is no internal switch that reads the room and adjusts. Not because he is disrespectful, because the signal the room is sending, he cannot receive it. One version of Bean shows up everywhere, because for him there is only one version. Now stop, because what comes next? Behavior 9. This is the one that changes everything. Behavior 9, Teddy. We need to talk about Teddy. Not as a joke, not as a running gag, as what it actually is. Teddy is Mr. Bean's most honest relationship, his most emotionally real connection across the entire show. When Bean is scared, Teddy is there. When something good happens, Teddy shares it. When Teddy is in danger, Bean's distress is more real than almost anything else we ever see from him. He feeds Teddy. He talks to Teddy. He comforts Teddy. He relates to that bear in the only way he seems able to relate to anything. Directly, honestly, without the complex, invisible rules that human relationships demand. Object attachment, where an inanimate object fills the emotional role that people are supposed to fill, is a well-documented trait in autism. The object does not have unpredictable emotions. It does not need things from you. It does not change. It is safe in a way that people simply are not. For 30 years, we laughed at the man with the teddy bear. But Teddy is not a joke. Teddy is the only relationship Mr. Bean knows how to have, and that is not funny. That is one of the most quietly heartbreaking things ever written into a comedy show, by writers who probably had no idea what they had actually made. Rowan Atkinson created Mr. Bean in 1990. The understanding of autism we have today did not exist back then. Nobody in that writer's room was thinking about the DSM-5, but what they made, accidentally, instinctively, was a character who cannot communicate the way we do, who cannot read the world the way we do, who finds ordinary life genuinely overwhelming, and who found the one relationship he could manage and held onto it with everything he had. We called it comedy. We watched it in over 200 countries. Children who had never heard the English language laughed at him. Adults who had nothing in common with each other laughed at him. And maybe, just maybe, the reason the whole world connected with Mr. Bean is not because he was a joke. Maybe it is because somewhere in his confusion, his rituals, and his loneliness, every single one of us recognized something true. One question before you go. Which of these 9 behaviors hit you the hardest? Tell me in the comments. I am genuinely reading every single one. If this video just changed the way you see Mr. Bean, subscribe right now and hit the bell, because every single video on this channel goes exactly this deep, and you do not want to be the last one to find out what is coming next.